Guys, welcome to Cereal at Midnight. My name is Heath, and this video is going to be a little bit different from the content that is usually posted on this channel. Frankly, this is going to be a little personal. I don't often talk about personal things on this channel. I don't reveal too much about my past. Frankly, I want to stay positive. I want to focus on the cool stuff that's out there, celebrate the things that I love and that I know you love too, but it's hard to celebrate something like Turmoil in the Toy Box, a book that, as the title of this video says, literally ruins childhood. I grew up in the 80s, and this book was in my house. My parents had this book. This book was a big deal. This author, Phil Phillips, now has over 1 million books in print, and he basically would chase down properties of, in the 80s we had this enormous glut of just the coolest stuff ever. We had He-Man, we had Ninja Turtles, Thundercats, Ghostbusters, Care Bears, G.I.Joe, Transformers. It was wonderful to be a kid in the 80s, but it wasn't wonderful if someone told your parents that those things were going to make you go to hell. And that's essentially what this book did. And I was not alone in this. I know that there were other kids, especially at church, who were very protected from things like this. Phil Phillips basically was, I guess, I don't think he has any sort of a psychological degree, but his statement behind his thesis for this book is that these properties are evil, they are corrupting your children's mind, the occult is everywhere. Now, the 80s were an interesting time because we did have all this amazing stuff, but it was also the decade of the PMRC, which was the group of politicians and concerned parents who wanted to regulate music and decide what was and was not decent. They came after Ozzy Osbourne, they came after Twisted Sister, even like Frank Zappa, he gave a testimony. John Denver testified before the PMRC saying that this is not okay because who decides what is and is not decent? Who has that power? That's too much power for anybody to have. This was also the decade, it's called the Satanic Panic, huge in the 80s. People believed that Dungeons and Dragons was causing children to kill themselves. So out of this decade comes a book like Turmoil in the Toy Box. And there's nothing safe from Phil Phillips in this book. Barbie, My Little Pony, Yoda, so Star Wars, Masters of the Universe, Care Bears, the Smurfs, G.I.Joe, Rainbow Brite. You may not have realized, but all those things are terribly evil. And so this book was in my house. This book was a deciding factor of never letting me see these things. These Masters of the Universe figures that I have, I got them in my 30s. The DVD box sets, again, late 20s, early 30s. So, let's just dig into the book itself, and I just want to share some of this stuff with you. So the book starts with him talking about, this is his thesis, is that he has decided that toys and cartoons are evil and they are a gateway to children being corrupted. Some of his concerns are valid, I have to say. In the 1980s, President Reagan deregulated the airwaves, meaning that for the first time in decades, years and years, it was safe and legal to advertise directly to children, which means that, I did not have a problem with this because I thought it was wonderful, but all the cereal commercials, the toy commercials, the G.I. Joe and Masters of the Universe, which were basically half-hour toy commercials for properties that look super cool to me, but that was new. You could not directly advertise to children because the thinking being that children don't have the faculties to discern what's truly what's real and what is a marketing gimmick, which is true. And there's a valid concern there. Should things have been deregulated? That's why we have at the end of G.I. Joe, we'd have public service announcements. But that was the price you had to pay for the advertisement. Yeah, you can advertise toys for 25 minutes, but you have to have a moral at the end. Hey kids, if you see a power line on the street, go around it. That made it all okay. That's a valid concern. I can understand that. But the places we go with these things are insane. Start with something as simple as Barbie. What could possibly be evil about Barbie? Well, according to the author, Barbie set unrealistic expectations of prosperity, beauty, and acceptance that goes directly against God's will for each and every individual child. That's evil. What about Smurfs? Those cute blue creatures that live in a land where they go la 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 all the time. Well, they are evil. They are dripping with actual witchcraft practices. You did not know this, but in the Smurfs cartoon, it was stacked wall to wall with actual witchcraft practices. And if you watched the cartoon, you would therefore know how to be a witch. Evil! My Little Pony. They're so cute. You can comb their hair. You can take them in the bath with you, and sometimes they'll change colors. What you did not know is that they are symbols of the devil. You see, some of the My Little Pony figures were unicorns. And as Mr. Phillips points out, the unicorn is a symbol of the Antichrist.
La la la.
What about Rainbow Brite, that colorful girl who rides a rainbow and who teaches tolerance and protection of the earth and resources and working things out with people through a peaceful method? Well, turns out she's evil too, because a rainbow is part of her gimmick. And New Agers use the rainbow symbol to symbolize the bridge built between man and Lucifer. I didn't know that about New Agers. Evil! Masters of the Universe gets its own chapter. As it turns out, He-Man is actually a one-to-one equal with God. I did not know that, and I didn't realize that it was fantasy. There's also a story in this chapter that I specifically remember my parents bringing up to me, which was why I was not allowed to play with He-Man toys and was not allowed to watch the cartoon. There was a little boy in this chapter who apparently the author knew, or some parent had told him after church one day, and she said, "Little Timmy, who has the power of the universe? Who has ultimate power?" Expecting the kid to say God. And the kid said, "Well, it's He-Man. By the power of Grayskull, He-Man has the power." Evil. This I get a real kick out of. This is pictures of Masters of the Universe figures, and note how they're shot on a black background to make them look especially terrible. Look at this picture of Beastman. Like, deliberately done to make him look as evil as possible. Here's another one. Check out Yoda. Yoda looks wicked there because he's got a black background. He's lit from above, so he's cast in shadow. It's all so manipulative. Jim and the Holograms. Well, that taught the pursuit of a hedonistic lifestyle. Evil. Care Bears. Turns out Care Bears are humanistic symbolism, and humanism puts man above God. And if Care Bears are humanistic, then Care Bears think they're better than God. That's what he thinks. Voltron, Robotech, GoBots, and Transformers are so violent that they upset parents. There are many other cartoons that are so filled with violence and the occult. Among these are the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo, Speed Racer, Tarzan, Spider-Man, and G.I. Joe. All of these should be considered unsuitable for children of any age. Chuck Jones, the creator of Pepe Le Pew and the Roadrunner and Coyote cartoons, points out that there's a dynamic in his cartoons where if you're ugly, you're evil, and if you're cute and pretty, then you're okay. It's horrifying to think that children could grow up with this thinking. If they did, how would they ever be able to handle those with psychological or physical handicaps? So those shows, they're out too. Looney Tunes are out. So guys, we could go on, but I think that you get it, right? If you can think of it, it gets dismantled by this author in this book and in many other books. Like I said, there are over 1 million of these things in print. He made a living off of creating fear, telling parents how to raise their kids, not teaching parenting, teaching protection, avoidance. It would be laughable if there weren't parents who took this to heart and thought that they were genuinely protecting their kids. It would be laughable if there weren't children who weren't allowed to watch G.I. Joe or He-Man, who couldn't play with Silverhawks or Thundercats figures because they were being protected from very evil subversive content, who didn't see an episode of the Smurfs until their 30s, who, I could go on, but you get it, right? Like, it's created a problem with me, and I hope that I can let it go at some point. But what bothers me is that just the profiting from fear. He seems to have moved on to better things these days. He's building shelters for kids in other countries who need a safe place to live. That seems to be a worthy cause to me. My sermon for the day, if you take anything out of this besides just like, oh, my childhood, if you take anything from this, it's that if you see darkness out there, don't tell people what they can and can't do. Instead, be light. The thing is, He-Man won at the end of every single episode. He-Man always was triumphant, and it taught a lot of good things. It taught that kids could reach from within themselves and they could overcome. All of these shows are about perseverance, good triumphing over evil, tolerance, loving the people around you, making your community a better place. That's what these cartoons are about. So that's really all I have. I would love to know if any of you guys have any similar relatable experiences to this. You probably don't have as extreme of a case as I do, but this is just very personal for me. It's a hot button topic. Like I'm closing in on 40. I'm a middle-aged man, and it still stays with me. I am still resentful about it. And part of the reason I'm making this video is that I was hoping I'd be able to speak it and let some of it go. Thanks for sticking with me. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, you are a true champion. You are a warrior, and I appreciate it. Hit the subscribe button. Please hit the thumbs up button if you like this. And if you have similar experiences, I would love to hear about them. Guys, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate you so much, and I will catch you later.